Welcome back to Luigi's Mansion 3. We're at the 10th floor, which is the Arabian floor, if I'm remembering correctly.
The Egyptian one, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is my least favorite floor in the game. I will say, the first room is a really fun room, even though there's really nothing to it, and you're just vacuuming up literally all the sand, because you can, pretty much. But despite the floor, on the whole, being one of the more complex and almost kind of Zelda dungeon-y like floors, I found it really frustrating.
I like
and
this floor though.
there's good ideas in this floor for sure. It's just I didn't like the boss fight, and a lot of the puzzles I found really frustrating. So I do like this gag though.
Luigi.
That gag was funny though. I will give the game.
I'm trying to get both. There we go.
I know, but it's just I love that it's just freezing there, like, huh?
I mean, it gets you more money, so...
Yeah. Do you get the A rank?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It's not hard to get it.
It probably was easier for you because you didn't buy any of the the gem hints or anything. I did that because I thought it would be easier than just looking up a guide.
Nope, not really.
I mean, it sort of is in that it helps you...
It depends on the floor, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly more convenient in that you don't have to open up a browser or anything like that. But at the same time, not having to open up a browser is the epitome of first world problems. So
it's for me, if it costs money in a game where money is better spent on other things, I will gladly save money by looking it up on a guide.
But there's no money spent on anything else in this game.
Well, just in games in general, like if you're looking for specific treasures, or like Resident Evil 4, for example, you can buy treasure maps from the merchant in that game to know where all the hidden treasures are. But you can also just save money and look up a guide and see the exact.
Okay, but John, here's the real 500 IQ play. All right.
Okay.
You buy the map, screenshot the map, reset the game. Don't buy the map. I did not. I had my volume too low to hear the reference.
Luigi?
Was that
We're being
airplane?
too literal. No, that's Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It was Mel Brooks. I got it somewhat right.
You couldn't make most of Mel Brooks' movies today, unfortunately.
No, you couldn't.
No.
You would no.
One of my immediate thoughts when I was rewatching Blazing Saddles.
I love the sand castles.
Yeah. Listen, Blazing Saddles is a really funny movie, but you absolutely could not make it today.
No, you could not. No, you could not.
Why?
Because I mean, it's a movie about race relations. Because it's a
Western in the 1800s and all that.
It's a Western, but the sheriff is a black guy, and all of the people in the town are exactly as racist as you would think that they are. So I mean, the movie does have a lot of really funny and smart commentary on race stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't think that people would be willing to make that kind of movie today. I'm not going to say that it couldn't be done, but
I would have to actually see what you were talking about to say whether or not.
Okay, so
I'd still recommend it. I mean, I still recommend pretty much all of Mel Brooks' films.
Yeah. For the most part, he's really good on a lot of stuff. There's just the occasional thing where there's
You
one
can
of
tell
the
he was born in the 1920s.
yeah, there's one of the Naked Guns where the sexy female villain turns out to be
A dude. Yeah.
and it's made as the big
that's
he
the
has a
punchline.
dick
Yeah.
jokes, which is
Yeah. That's what makes the big thing about Ace Ventura so
Awkward.
That hadn't aged well. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, just to put it into perspective, there is a scene in Blazing Saddles where the black guy is walking up to be put to be lynched. So it goes to a lot of those kinds of places, but it's a hard movie to talk about, especially as a white dude too. It's you can do that? Oh my god! You
I
could.
didn't know that the balloon boo served a purpose.
That's amazing. Oh my god.
Yeah, because wasn't there a Balloon Boo in the original game
Yeah,
that
and
was
it
like
did.
a fake out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fake out.
Yeah, it's like when it was beeping on the boo radar. Sometimes it would be like a beach ball or a bomb or something. So that was really clever. Wow. Oh, that was okay. That was the gem. It just I heard a kind of sound in it.
It's just this idea, this whole room would be a fucking nightmare for me in a game where you're encouraged to suck up everything.
Oh no, I did it. I sucked up every single grain of sand.
So did I. But
It
you'll
took
never
20
get it
minutes.
all because the moment you open those things on the side, they start pouring sand in. They start
And it
pouring
doesn't
sand
stop.
in, and it doesn't stop. It does actually stop building in this little like mound below it, so it's not like it'll. Fill
But if you
the
suck
room
up
up
the
again.
if you suck out the mound, it'll
Yeah,
start.
but you need the sand because you do need certain amount of sand on the ground so that you can walk up to things that you can't reach.
If you absolutely need to, and you've accidentally sucked up all the sand in the room, and for some reason you're averse to resetting the room by going back to a previous floor, you can blow the sand from the mounds that fall in from the holes in the wall as far as you want.
Yeah, like right here. That's the point of that right there is like so you can push the sand in order
Yeah.
to get.
You can push the sand around and mold it to your heart's content. You can't build a sand castle with it, sadly, although that
Damn,
would be
I was about to ask
impressive
that.
using only a vacuum cleaner. But you can manipulate the sand in quite a few interesting ways. I have a
we
feeling
would need the water medallion from the first game to actually make a sandcastle.
I have a feeling that like the reason this room exists was because they decided to just take their sand engine tech demo and make it the lobby of their Egyptian.
Why does he use the megaphone when he's next to him and then yells at the guys with his hands?
That's the joke, John.
I know, but it's like it is one of those things that you just think about every time you see the movie. It's like, why is he
Because
doing
he's
that?
an idiot. That's why.
It's the lamp.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Come on out, Robin Williams.
Whenever I see a Spaceballs clip, it just makes me want to watch Galaxy Quest. For some reason.
Oh, I love Galaxy Quest.
I know, it's such a good movie, but it's just like, for some reason, seeing Spaceballs makes me want to watch Galaxy Quest, and I don't know why.
Maybe it's like the spoof version of that feeling people have that Star Wars is inferior to Star Trek. Or
I
something.
mean, oh god, the Star... okay, Vase. You can not break after that impact, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think people have gone on about how the Star Wars Star Trek debate isn't
Isn't a
really
thing.
a real thing because you're watching them for two completely different reasons.
Also, the fan bases are too busy fighting themselves to actually worry about other people.
That is also true. But it's like, it's one of those things which is like, okay, what movie do you think is better? Schindler's List or Space Jam? It's like, you're not watching those movies.
Which as we all know, are very similar in the messages they're trying to convey.
But I mean, asking whether or not you like Schindler's List more than Space Jam is about as accurate as asking whether...
Schindler's List was a really powerful movie until Michael Jordan showed up. Like, then I was confused.
The treatment of the Monstars in Space Jam really has many parallels to Schindler and Schindler's
Oh my
List.
god.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not.
I sort of get what you're trying to say, but at the same time, also not really.
I mean, I picked a terrible analogy, but...
While Star Wars and Star Trek are indeed different legs of a genre, with Star Wars being more fantasy-oriented and Star Trek being somewhat more hard sci-fi, at the same
You
time...
broke, John.
At the same time, they do have a lot of elements
It's
in
like,
common that are worth
it's like
noting.
to do a BrainScratch out of context tweet that says like for Schindler's List, retweet for Space Jam.
Are you
Okay.
doing that?
No, I'm not doing
I'm doing that.
No, Ted, don't.
Oh,
Don't do it.
you guys are no fun.
No.
Well, now that you said
Don't
it,
do it.
someone's gonna do it.
Well, they're going to do it now, but then it won't be us that did it.
I would say that
Yeah,
is
then
not,
we
that
can
is
blame
not
it
our
on somebody
fault.
else. Yeah, then it's not a problem anymore.
Anyway, I was saying that Star Wars and Star Trek do have points of comparison that can be, criticized.
Yes, they are in space.
They not just in space, but they also, have that whole thing where they're basically their own made-up setting full of different races and cultures that you learn about and want to get invested in, and both of them do those things in different ways with different narrative emphasis.
As we all know, in Star Wars, the only race that matters are humans and the occasional Wookiee.
Do robots count as a race?
I mean, if you're just looking at the movies, yeah, you'd be right to say that, Ryan. At the same time, though, when you get even slightly into the expanded universe, you start getting a lot more into the other species because they have more room to do that. And in the case of the Clone Wars, they don't have to worry about getting human actors to play their computer animated people.
So that's actually a really funny thing about Star Wars v Star Trek is that on the surface you'd think that Star Trek is the harder franchise to get into because, it's a TV show and it's denser overall, but the second you step out of the movies for Star Wars, it's no. It is not easier to get into.
It depends on where you step out of the movies into, really. It's easy enough to get into something like Clone Wars. But when you try to get into the old expanded universe and you gotta deal with shit like the Yuuzhan Vong, it's why?
Yeah, it's okay, as soon as somebody's okay, you should read the Thrawn trilogy, and you're just
the Thrawn trilogy is great, but it's also not entirely complicated. It's a good sequel. It would work actually as a trilogy of movies. It would have worked, I should say, as an episode 7, 8, and 9 before George Lucas went and made the prequels and made everything non-canon. Yeah, that wasn't Disney, that was Lucas.
Oh wait, so the Thrawn trilogy were different takes on before.
The Thrawn trilogy was written before the prequels came along. So they basically made shit up as they went along when it came to what the Clone Wars were like, because all they really had at the time was the mention of the Clone Wars in A New Hope. So
there was a war and it involved clones. Yep.
Yeah, basically.
When you think about it, that's a really random ass thing to bring up in the middle of your movie.
Well, it was just a reference to past history that the Jedi Knights were involved in.
It was also just to make it clear that this is episode. Yeah, I know it didn't start as episode 4, but it's clearly intended to be episode 4.
In the Thrawn trilogy, it's implied that the clones were fighting on the bad guys' side. I think, but
well, I mean, in the real movie, they were
as
on
well,
the bad guys' side.
Well, yeah, but they were fighting against the Jedi, not with them. Is the thing, and they had some. The Thrawn trilogy has some elements that don't come up in the prequels at all, like clones going slowly insane, for example. And there are 2 clones that you meet in the Thrawn trilogy. One is a clone of a Jedi that we've never met before, who we only learn is a clone because Thrawn says he knows that Jedi is already dead. That doesn't come up until Outbound Flight, I think, which was a much later novel. But the other clone is a clone of Luke Skywalker.
Oh no. Does Star Wars have its own clone saga?
No.
Am I a clone? I don't think it matters that I'm a clone. But am I a clone? Oh god.
It's a clone of Luke Skywalker that was created using his severed hand.
I hate comic books so
much.
It winds up being a very convenient clone because one of the characters, Mara Jade, has this Force suggestion in her mind that's telling her to kill Luke Skywalker. And
so she kills the fake Luke Skywalker.
She kills the fake Luke Skywalker, and it fulfills the Emperor's Force suggestion, yes. So it winds up being a very convenient clone. And you know what's great about the clone, though? Because for some reason, and this is the one writing decision that I don't get in the entire Thrawn trilogy, clones have the same name as their original person, just with an extra letter. So Yoris Kabalth's, however you pronounce his last name, his clone is Yoruis Kabalth, and Luke Skywalker.
Namora!
Can you guess what Luke Skywalker's clone is named?
Luke
Skywalker?
It's Luke Skywalker with 2 U's.
Yeah. 2
Luke.
U's.
Oh, so Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker.
I would have gone with Luke Skywalker's.
Or Luke Skywalker. I don't know. The point is...
Oh God. I don't know what makes me more upset. The fact that Star Wars has Kingdom Hearts or the fact that Star Wars has a Clone Saga. Both make me very upset.
But you know what? The Thrawn trilogy is still like the best Star Wars, so... Yeah. It's the stuff
This has been a very trip of a part so far.
It's the stuff that comes after the Thrawn trilogy that gets stupid. Oh God damn it!
What are you talking about? I love Spider Legs Darth Maul. Okay.
Spider Legs Darth Maul was conceptually silly, but Clone Wars makes it work. They turned Darth Maul into a really good character after that.
Now it's just you look up some of the stuff where it's like Darth Maul, he survives getting chopped in half. And then he has spider legs, okay. And then he dies again, but then also still survives. And then he dies again, and then is a Force ghost.
When did he die again?
He turns up as he dies at least twice, because there's the first time where you think he dies. And then he definitely becomes a Force ghost at some point. Hold on.
You might be thinking out of chronological order, to be honest, because Darth Maul, after he comes back in Clone Wars, he lasts up until late series Rebels, and then dies.
Okay, I mean, I absolutely could be thinking out of order here because I went on like a week-long Wikipedia binge in high school.
Oh, congratulations! You completed 1% of the entire Wikipedia.
Well,
I know, right?
don't ever like go by Wikipedia to decide whether or not something is good or not. In fact, don't ever go by a wiki to decide whether or not something is good.
Oh yeah, no.
Wiki
I mean, I'm sure a lot of these stories are great, but they're also silly.
Wiki articles have an astounding talent for making horrible stuff sound good and making good stuff sound boring.
I know, right? It's uncanny how that happens.
And then, of course, there's no accounting for storytelling in a wiki article because, like, okay, you can read a wiki article that gives you, like, a perfect outline of Rey and Kylo Ren's backstory, but it doesn't tell you how much of that stuff is missing from the movies now, does it? And then you watch the movies and you realize, like, wow, this is really anemic. It would have been really good if they had told us all this other stuff.
Did you mean episodes 7 and 9? And 8 too. I guess that's also a thing that 8. But like that's the entire thing about episodes.
Like, you know, you can argue for days about the quality of the narrative direction that episode 8 took. But with a few small exceptions, I would call it like the most self-contained of the sequel movies as far as its narrative elements go. Like,
yeah, my joke should have just been, did you mean episode 9? Because like half the crap that makes that stuff interesting is not on screen.
Yeah, episode 9. High-flying action, really fun to watch, terrible story. It truly is the Final Fantasy XIII of Star Wars. And only, you know, a lot more bearable because, like, Final Fantasy
It's only 2 hours.
Yeah, it's only 2 hours. Final Fantasy XIII is more like 60. And that's if you don't do the monster hunting side quest storm at the end.
So, if you think about it, if you were playing Final Fantasy XIII, by the time you could have finished watching episode 9, I think you're like just getting to the point where you start playing as Hope and Vanille. So,
Oops.
yeah.
Hope and... You know what? That's probably accurate. That's, what, chapter 2?
Yeah, so... The poor soul who chose to play Final Fantasy XIII instead.
If you're playing it quickly, you might have reached Lake Brescia by that point.
And you skipped all the cutscenes, yeah.
Yeah, Lake Brescia being the part of the game where you can actually start leveling up.
Oh, I forgot that they... Oh, God.
Yeah, they don't give you access to the Crystarium until your characters are officially l'Cie. The only narratively cool thing they kind of do with this is that Vanille has 3 ATB bars instead of just 2 when you first play as her, which is your clue that she's already a l'Cie.
Well, okay, then we'll see you all in the next part of Luigi's Mansion.